In just 9 days, a grainy online video went viral, reaching 100 million views. It wasn't a music video or a carefully crafted trailer, but a clip of a 47-year-old woman from a small, unheard-of village in Scotland. She sang in front of an audience that had already written her off before she even opened her mouth. Susan Boyle's rise from invisibility to global fame is an extraordinary story of how talent can remain hidden by society's biases and expectations, and how it only takes a moment for everything to change. Her success shattered records, but the journey afterward almost broke her. The world underestimated Susan Boyle for 47 years, but when she finally got her chance to be seen, she captured the attention of millions in an instant. This is the story of how one person, once invisible, became impossible to ignore. A challenging start in Blackburn. Susan Magdalene Boyle was born on April 1, 1961, in Blackburn, West Lothian, Scotland, as the youngest of 10 children. The birth was complicated, leading to oxygen deprivation and a diagnosis of what was later described as minor brain damage. This early challenge would shape Susan's life, particularly her experience in school. She struggled to fit in with her peers and was often labeled as difficult, slow, and odd. Children, quick to pick up on differences, bullied her, calling her Susie Simple, a nickname that haunted her throughout her school years. But amidst the isolation and cruelty, Susan found solace in music. Her voice, pure and untrained, became her escape, and the one thing in her life that never judged her. Music as a lifeline. From a young age, Susan's love for music was unwavering. She sang in church, at home, and often alone in her small bedroom in the council house. Music became her constant companion, a place where she could be herself without judgment. Despite facing difficulties in school and growing up in an environment that offered few opportunities, Susan's voice remained a bright light in her life. Her mother, Bridget, was her biggest supporter. A woman of deep Catholic faith and practicality, Bridget always encouraged Susan to sing and assured her that her voice was a gift. It was Bridget who first nudged Susan to perform in local talent shows, always seated in the front row, cheering her on. These small local performances were the beginning of what would later become a remarkable journey. The struggles of being overlooked. As Susan grew older, she tried to break out of her small-town confines. She recorded a demo tape in 1999 and applied for a performing arts program, but was rejected. She entered several talent competitions and local showcases, but time and time again, she was overlooked. Her dreams seemed distant and unreachable, as the entertainment industry had little room for someone who didn't fit its standard image. Too old, too unconventional, and too plain to conform to the industry's expectations, Susan's attempts to break into the music world were met with silence. The world seemed to have no place for her, and each failure brought her back to Blackburn, where she cared for her aging mother and lived a life marked by solitude. A promise to her mother. In 2007, Susan's mother, Bridget, passed away at the age of 91. For the first time in her life, Susan found herself living alone in the same house she had grown up in, with only her cat, Pebbles, for company. It was in this quiet solitude that Susan made the decision to audition for Britain's Got Talent in 2009. At first, she nearly gave up on the idea, thinking back to the many times she had been rejected. But there was one reason she pushed herself to go: a promise to her mother. Bridget had always encouraged Susan to chase her dreams, and Susan felt she owed it to her mother's memory to try once more. This time, she would audition, regardless of the outcome, simply because she had promised to. A global phenomenon. Within hours, the audition clip was uploaded to YouTube, and within 9 days, it had been watched over 100 million times. Susan Boyle, a woman who had spent 47 years in relative obscurity, was suddenly a global sensation. Back in Blackburn, Susan was still adjusting to the overwhelming attention. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. and the quiet life she had known was suddenly turned upside down. The world had found her. But Susan, ever the introvert, was unsure how to process this new reality. Fame had arrived, but it came too quickly for her to prepare for it. She had spent years living a life of solitude, and now she was being thrust into the spotlight with no time to build the emotional armor that most stars develop over time. The price of fame. The sudden surge of fame was both exhilarating and overwhelming for Susan. In the days following her audition, she was whisked away to appear on American morning shows, interviewed by top publications, and introduced to a new team of managers and publicists. The world now had expectations of her, but Susan had never asked for fame. It wasn't something she had been chasing. It was something that had found her when she least expected it. As the media spotlight intensified, so did the pressure. Susan had only 9 days to process the fact that she was no longer an unknown woman from Blackburn, but an international sensation. The world had decided her story for her, and now she had to navigate it as best as she could. The struggle of being transformed into a story. The whirlwind that followed Susan's audition was a mix of fairy tale moments and harsh realities. She appeared on television programs across the world, performed in front of massive audiences, and was treated like a celebrity in ways she had never imagined. Yet the very thing that made her special, the authenticity of her voice and her story, was also the very thing that exposed her to scrutiny. As her face appeared on television screens in countries she had never heard of, she began to realize that she was no longer just Susan Boyle, the woman with a powerful voice. She had become a symbol. Fame, when it comes so suddenly, doesn't allow for much time to adjust, and for Susan, the transformation was both a blessing and a burden. Coming to terms with the unexpected. In the months that followed, Susan Boyle's life was a mixture of triumph and turmoil. The world had witnessed her incredible talent, but it had also put her under a microscope. Susan had spent most of her life in a small town, living a quiet, private existence. Now she was being thrust into a world of relentless media attention and public expectations. Despite the fame and success that came her way, Susan struggled with the emotional toll it took. She had been thrust into the limelight so quickly that she had no time to adjust to the idea of being famous. The quiet woman from Blackburn was now a global phenomenon, and though she had always dreamed of being heard, she had never anticipated the price of finally being seen.